Have you ever stared out at the ocean at night and felt like something was staring back? In the quietest hours, when the sea seems to hold its breath, ancient things can awaken. For marine archaeologist Ella Marin, this wasn't just a feeling. It was a reality she was about to discover. Aboard a small research boat, adrift on an infinitely black ocean, Ella watched a faint blip throb on her radar. "There," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. The signal's growing stronger. Captain Harris, a man whose face was a map of countless voyages, watched her with unease. "The sea's been strange tonight," he grumbled. "If your wreck is down there, it doesn't want to be found." Just then, a deep, hollow boom echoed across the water. Both of them froze, their eyes scanning the horizon. The thick fog began to part, like a curtain opening on a forgotten stage, and there it was, the silhouette of a massive 18th-century ship, its form pristine, floating silently as if time had never touched it. "That's impossible," Ella whispered. The ship looked brand new. Lanterns cast a faint, eerie glow on its deck, though no one had been aboard to light them for centuries. Ignoring Harris's warning, Ella felt an irresistible pull. She had to see it up close. As she stepped onto the ship's creaking deck, with Harris reluctantly following, the world around them fell unnaturally still. The waves stopped their gentle rhythm. The wind died completely. "This ship, it feels alive," Ella murmured, her hand tracing the smooth, unweathered wood of the railing. "Or hungry," Harris muttered beside her. That's when they heard it. A whisper, drifting through the dead air. It wasn't a single voice, but many, layered and ancient, speaking as one. "Welcome back," it hissed. Ella froze. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her heart pounding. But Harris didn't answer. He was staring at the deck. A fresh puddle of seawater was forming at his feet, spreading slowly, even though nothing around them was wet. As they watched, the water began to ripple on its own. Drawn deeper into the mystery, Ella led the way to the lower decks. A long, dark corridor stretched before them, its walls dripping with water that shouldn't have been there. The entire ship seemed to breathe around them, the wooden boards shifting like a giant ribcage, inhaling and exhaling. Her flashlight beam danced ahead, flickering erratically. "This deck wasn't on the blueprints," she said, her voice trembling. At the far end of the hall, a figure moved. Ella raised her light, and her breath caught in her throat. It was a sailor, his clothes soaked, his skin pale, his eyes empty and vacant. He opened his mouth, but instead of words, a stream of dark seawater spilled out. "You shouldn't have answered the call," he gurgled. He lunged toward them, but just as he reached out, his form collapsed into a pool of water on the floor, dissolving as if he were never really there. "We're leaving now," Harris said, his voice shaking with terror. But as they turned, the heavy wooden staircase behind them slammed shut, sealing them in. Trapped, they searched for another way out. Their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness, they found themselves before a large, ornate door, standing half open. A strange blue light glowed from within the captain's quarters. Compelled by a force she couldn't explain, Ella stepped inside. The room was immaculate, preserved against the ages. Maps on the wall still swayed gently, as if feeling the ocean's rhythm. On a grand wooden desk, a captain's log lay open. Ella's fingers trembled as she traced the elegant script. "Tonight, the sea spoke," she read softly, a voice like a storm beneath the skin. "We sail toward it, even if it means we never return." She turned the page. It was blank, except for one final line, etched violently into the paper. "Whoever hears the whisper, becomes the whisper." A cold dread washed over her. Behind her, a figure began to materialize from the shadows. It was the ship's captain. His skin was swollen and waterlogged, his coat dripped endlessly onto the floor, and his eyes glowed with the chilling light of the deep sea. "You came to replace me," he gurgled, the sound like drowning and speaking all at once. Ella stumbled backward as Harris burst into the room. "Ella, don't look at him," he screamed, but it was too late. She had already met the captain's gaze. He raised a bloated hand, and the water on the floor rose, surrounding Ella's feet like ghostly fingers, pulling her down. Torrents of living water dragged her below deck. With Harris desperately trying to follow, they plunged into the ship's hull, a nightmarish cathedral of the drowned. Dozens of bodies were suspended in watery, half-translucent cocoons, their faces frozen in silent screams. And from them all came that terrible unified whisper, "Join us, join us." Ella struggled as the water lifted her, a new cocoon forming around her. In a last, desperate act, Harris fired his flare gun. The brilliant red light shattered the darkness, and the spectral forms recoiled in pain. He grabbed Ella's arm. "Move, now." They ran through the ship's corridors, but the very architecture was twisting and changing around them, the ship rearranging itself to keep them forever. They finally burst back onto the main deck just as the fog thickened into an impenetrable wall. The ghost ship began to sink fast, pulled down by unseen hands from the deep. With a final, desperate leap, they jumped back onto their small research boat as the massive vessel groaned like a dying beast and slipped beneath the waves, its lanterns still burning under the surface. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, they drifted on the now-come sea. Ella sat trembling, soaked and pale, staring into the distance. "It's over," Harris said, trying to reassure both of them. Ella didn't respond. Then, a faint whisper rose from the water, seeming to come from right beside their boat. She slowly turned to look at her own reflection in the water. It stared back at her, but its lips were moving, forming words she wasn't speaking. Ella gasped in horror. The whisper rose again, clearer this time. The ship is never gone, only waiting. And in the dark water her reflection smiled. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy stories that explore the chilling mysteries of the deep, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more tales from the abyss.